Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Selamat datang ke Pusat Siaran Tuition Akademi YouTuber bersama Didik Malaysia dan Kelab Guru Malaysia. Sekarang saya berada dalam siaran secara rakaman melalui channel saya, Cikgu Yati Channel, dan semoga ia dapat memberi manfaat kepada para pelajar sekalian. Hari ini saya bersendirian. Sebelum ni Akademi YouTuber saya secara langsung bersama rakan-rakan saya, tapi kali ini saya bersendirian dan saya buat rakaman sempena bulan Ramadan ini. Jadi kepada para pelajar sekalian, boleh tonton video saya yang bertajuk topik 11 Decision Making.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to discuss about relevant cause for decision making. Application in decision making. Number 1, make or buy. For this alternative, you have to calculate the product cost and you have to choose the lower cost. Number 2, accept or reject a special price order. We have to calculate net profit for each alternative and we have to choose the higher profit. Make or buy in decision making. There are a few steps for preparing a differential analysis. Number 1, we have to identify relevant costs and irrelevant costs. 2, we have to prepare a differential analysis table. 3, we have to eliminate irrelevant costs from analysis because from analysis we just focus on relevant costs. Irrelevant costs mean that costs that do not differ between alternatives. 4. Calculate relevant costs only in the analysis. Relevant costs means that costs that differ between alternatives in making decision. Number 5. Choose the lowest cost between alternatives, either make or buy. This is the example for differential analysis for make or buy. In this table, we have to calculate relevant costs only, and there are 4 columns. The first one, item. Number 2, make column, buy, and the different column. For cost of making, normally we have to record direct material, direct labor, variable overhead as relevant costs. And for fixed overhead, it depends on the question, either relevant cost or irrelevant cost. And we have to compare with cost of buying. From the comparison between cost of making and cost of buying, we will get the different amount. And for this column, we can find out that this item has been eliminated or avoided when we are buying from the outsider. When we compare between the cost of making and the cost of buying, we have to choose the lowest cost. Example 1, make or buy. Beja Sendirian Berhad currently produce 2 types of components, namely AD201 and AX203, as input for its primary output process. The unit cost of the components are as follows. So, there are 4 items for cost. Number 1, direct material, direct labor, and variable overhead are considered as relevant costs. And for fixed overhead, it depends on the situation. Either it can be relevant cost or irrelevant cost. So the company are producing 2 components. So this is the total cost of producing AD201 and AX203. Based on the question just now, fixed overhead is as follows. Supervisor's salary, depreciation, and rental facilities. So we look at the question below. The sentence, overhead is charged based on direct labor hours. The above rate is calculated using 5,500 hours of direct labor. A supplier has offered to supply the builder for all the required components with the price of AD201 is RM100 and AX203 is RM132. If the offer is accepted, equipment used by builder will be avoided, no waste value, and the factory will be closed. Builder use 1,500 units of AD201 and 1,000 units of AX203 per year. So it means that supervisor's salary and rental can be eliminated or can be avoided. But for depreciation is irrelevant cost because it is sunk cost, the cost that had incurred from previous year. So, required, should builder sendirian berhad continue to process or buy from supplier? Number 2, prepare the differential analysis. So, this is the answer by preparing make or buy analysis. We have to compare make or buy analysis and we call this one a differential analysis. So, the first column represent for item, the second one make, the third column buy, and this is the different amount between make or buy. So, we start with cost of making, and this is a relevant cost, direct material, direct labor, variable overhead. So, direct material, there are 2 components. The first component, 1,500 times RM60 plus 1,000 unit for the second component times RM90. And the cost for direct materials is 180,000. For direct labor, 2,500 where we have to add 1,500 plus 1,000 and we got the total 2,500 times RM20 and the amount is 50,000. Variable overhead, we have to add for 2 components, 1,500 plus 1,000. So the total is 2,500 times 5 and you got the amount 12,500. And for fixed overhead, for supervisor's salaries and factory rent, it is relevant cost. And we have to record for the cost of making 30,000 and 20,000. And you can see that the depreciation is not recorded because depreciation is irrelevant cost and should be eliminated from the analysis because we are showing the relevant cost only. And the total for making is 292,500. And look at the cost of buying. We have to buy for the first component 1,500 times RM100 and for the second component 1,000 unit times RM132 and the cost of buying is 282,000. So for the direct material, direct labor, variable overhead, fixed overhead for supervisors' salaries and factory, we should eliminate or we should avoid it. We should avoid when we are purchasing from the supplier. So this is the difference between make or buy 180,000, 50,000, 12,500, 30,000, 20,000. And when we compare the cost of making 292,500 with the cost of buying 282,000 and the difference is 10,500. So we have to choose the lowest cost. So the lowest cost is 282,000. So the company should buy the component because it will reduce the cost with the amount of 10,500. So this is the answer. The company should buy the product from the supplier because it will reduce cost with the amount of 10,500. That is 292,500 less 282,000. Example 2. Parent company incurs the following annual costs in producing 25,000 units ignition switch for motor scooter. So this is the list of costs. Product cost, direct material, direct labor, variable overhead, and fixed overhead. Instead of making its own switch, parent company might purchase the ignition switch at a price of Rm8 per unit. If purchased the ignition, Rm10,000 of fixed cost will be eliminated. So it means that Rm10,000 of fixed overhead can be avoided. So another 50,000 of fixed overhead is irrelevant cost and we should eliminate 50,000 of irrelevant cost from the analysis. So we just record the relevant cost for direct material, direct labor, variable overhead and fixed overhead. Only 10,000. Required. Should parent company continue to make or buy from supplier? And number 2, prepare the differential analysis. Okay, this is the answer for example 2, make or buy analysis. So, the cost of making direct material 50,000, direct labor 75,000, variable overhead 40,000, fixed overhead we just choose avoidable cost. The amount is 10,000. So for this component are relevant costs. When we purchase or we buy the component from outsider, these 4 component or item can be avoided or can be eliminated. So the total cost for making is 175,000 and the cost of buying, we have to calculate 25,000 unit times Rm8. You got the 200,000. So when we compare the cost of making and the cost of buying, and we find out that the cost of making is lower than the cost of buying, and the different cost is 25,000. So, the company should make the components of the product because it will reduce cost with the amount Rm25,000. How do you get that amount? That is the difference between the cost of buying 200,000 less the cost of making 175,000. Applications in decision making. Accept or reject special price order. When sales are low or when there is idle production capacity, special order should be accepted if the incremental revenue from special order is greater than incremental cost. So we have to compare the revenue with the cost. Okay, there are a few steps of preparing a differential analysis. Number 1, identify relevant costs and irrelevant costs. Number 2, we have to prepare a differential analysis table. We have to compare, accept or reject special order. Number 3, we have to calculate net profit, so sales less variable cost, and we get the amount, contribution margin. Variable cost normally represent for relevant costs, and we have to deduct fixed costs. Fixed costs represent normally irrelevant costs. So when you get sales less variable cost, we got contribution margin. Number 4, choose the highest profit of the alternative. Either we want to choose, accept or reject special order. And this is the format of preparing the differential analysis. We have to make an analysis and comparing reject order and accept order. And this is the format of the statement of income. So sales less variable cost, you got a contribution margin. Variable costs normally represent for relevant costs, and fixed costs normally irrelevant costs, and sometimes relevant costs. It depends on the question. And you got the net profit for reject order and net profit for accept order. And we have to compare these two alternatives. And you can find out the different amount of profit. So we have to choose the highest profit, either reject order or accept order. Example 1, accept or reject order, reject special order. Atom 9 Berhad produce a product named Alpha. The volume of production capacity is 80%. So it means that there is idle capacity of 20% that is not being used or not being produced the product 20%. Estimated cost and revenue for the productions are as follows. So this is the detail for sales. So the unit sale 8,000. The total sales is 160,000 and selling price per unit is 20 ringgit per unit. And this is the product cost. Direct material 40,000 and cost per unit is 5. Direct labor 32,000, cost per unit is 4. Variable cost or variable overhead 8,000, cost per unit is 1. Fixed overhead 32,000 and cost per unit is 4. And this is the cost of fixed sales and administration 24,000. So we continue from the previous question. For the same year, Atom 9 Berhad had received an offer from the supplier with a special price RM13 per unit. So you can see that the company received an offer from the supplier with the price of RM13 per unit when ordering 2,000 units of the product. Advise the management of Atom 9 Berhad whether to accept or reject the special order. So we have to calculate. For the full capacity is 100% or 10,000, but the company only use 80% or 8,000 units. So the company have 20% of idle capacity. So as a conclusion, in terms of 20% of idle capacity, the company should accept the special price order. Okay, example 1. Accept or reject special order. We have to calculate the net profit for reject order. So this is the original units. And we have to calculate the net profit for accept order. And we have to add 8,000 plus 2,000. 2,000 represent for the idle capacity. That means the company are able to produce 2,000 units extra. And we have to calculate sales. So for the first column, reject order, this is the calculation for the first column. 8,000 units given in the question times selling price, RM20, and the sales for reject order is 160,000. And we have to calculate for accept order, that is 8,000 plus 2,000 extra units. So we just take this amount, 160,000. This amount represents for 8,000 units plus 2,000 units with the offer price is RM13. And when you calculate for this amount, you will get 186,000. So the different sales between reject order and accept order is 26,000. After calculate sale, we have to deduct or less variable cost. So variable cost represent for direct material, direct labor, and variable overhead. So the amount is 8,000 units for the original units times RM10. RM10 represent for direct material, direct labor per unit, and variable cost per unit. So you have to look at the question. And you got the answer 80,000. And for accept order, we have to calculate 8,000 plus 2,000. So the total is 10,000 units times RM10. So RM10 represent for direct material per unit, direct labor per unit, and variable cost per unit. So the total is RM10. And the answer is 100,000. So the difference for variable cost between reject order and accept order is 20,000. And we have to calculate contribution margin, 80,000 for reject order and accept order is 86,000. And the difference, we can see that contribution margin for accept order is higher than the reject order. And the different amount is 6,000. And we have to deduct fixed cost. And we must record fixed cost as irrelevant cost because there is no difference between reject order and accept order. So fixed costs are relevant costs, including fixed overhead and fixed sales and administration. So there is no difference between reject order and accept order. So we just put it dash. And you can find out that the difference between reject order and accept order is 6,000. So we can find out that we should accept the order from supplier because it will increase the profit of the company. And the different amount is 6,000. So the answer is the company should accept the special order because it will increase the profit with the amount RM6,000. Okay, now we look at the example number 2. Accept or reject special order. Thomas Company makes a product that regularly sells for RM12.50 or 12 ringgit and 50 cents. The product has variable manufacturing cost of RM8 8.50 per unit and fixed manufacturing cost of RM2 per unit based on RM200,000 total fixed cost at current production of 100,000 units. Total production cost is RM1050. So we got this amount. Total product cost is the variable manufacturing cost, 8 ringgit and 50 cent plus 2 ringgit, and the total for production cost is RM10.50 or 10 ringgit and 50 cent. Thomas Company received an offer from Wesley Company to purchase 5,000 units for RM9 for each. Selling and administrative costs and future sale will not affected by the sale, and Thomas does not expect any additional fixed costs. Thomas Company has idle capacity. It means that the company still have the time or are able to produce 5,000 units because the company has idle capacity. Required. If Thomas Company has idle capacity, should it accept the offer from Wesley? Number 2, show your calculation using a differential analysis. And this is the answer for example 2, accept or reject special order. Sale for reject order is different from sale of accept order. So we look at the first one, reject order. This row represents for the first alternative, that is reject order. 100,000 units times RM12.50, and you will get the sales for reject order is 1,250,000. Now we have to calculate sales for accept order. So this amount for 100,000 unit, you got 1,250,000 plus 5,000 unit that we want to produce extra unit times RM9. This is the special order, special price that given by the supplier. And when we calculate for this amount, this is second row represent for accept order. So the answer is 1,295,000. The difference between reject order and accept order for sales are 450,000. And we can see that the sale for accept order is greater than reject order. After calculating sale, we have to deduct variable cost, and you must know variable cost represent for relevant costs. So the first row represent for reject order, and 100,000 unit times 8.50, and you got 850,000. And we have to calculate for variable cost under accept order. So the amount is 100,000 unit plus 5,000 unit extra unit production times 8.50, and you got the variable cost under accept order is 892,500, and the difference for variable cost between reject order and accept order is 42,500. Now, we have to deduct for this amount in order to calculate contribution margin. And for reject order, the contribution margin is 400,000, and for accept order, the contribution margin is 402,500. And we can see that the contribution margin under accept order is greater than the reject order. It means that the different amount is 2,500, and it means that the company should accept order because the profit is greater than the reject order. Now, after calculating contribution margin, we can calculate net profit. So this is irrelevant cost, and it does not affect there's two alternatives because you want to compare the relevant cost only. So we just got contribution margin. We can compare for these two alternatives, and this is the different amount. And for fixed overhead, we still have to calculate fixed overhead because we want to calculate net profit. So deduct fixed overhead for reject order 200,000 and also for accept order 200,000. And the net profit for reject order is 200,000 and the accept order is 202,500. When we compare between reject order and accept order, and we find out that there is the different amount 202,500 represent profit. So we find out that accept order is greater than 200,000 for reject order. So the conclusion for the decision making, the company should accept the special order because it will increase the profit with the amount of RM 2,500. Don't forget to watch my next video. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.